Hey, it's Sarah Burke here from the Women in Media podcast. And before we get started on a new episode, could I get you to hit like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, whichever app you do your podcast listening in. Make sure you're all set up so you know when there's a new episode and you can help spread the word. Oh, and if you're so inclined, could I ask you to leave a review if the app that you're using does that? You're the best. All right, let's get to the show. I'm Sarah Burke, and this is the Women in Media podcast. If you haven't already hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service, do me a solid. That way you'll know when I publish a new episode. My guest today was born in the U.S., grew up in Oakville, Ontario, and although she went to school to become a civil engineer, her heart led her to sports media.
Do I love sports? Do I know sports? Was I hired because of my sports knowledge? I'm passionate about it. I love it. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. And I hate when people say, do you actually like sports? Like, that's the biggest slap in the face someone can ask, because they would never ask any of my male counterparts or colleagues. Like, it's just so silly and it's infuriating. Have I gotten better at knowing my sports knowledge? Of course. Am I an analyst? By no means, but I don't think I try to be.
Evanka Osmak is my guest today. She's an anchor for Sportsnet with Rogers, and she's just returned to work after having her second little guy. How are you feeling being back at work?
Oh my gosh, it's been chaotic. It's been a huge adjustment. Just because the hours are so opposite of a child's schedule. I'm going in at about 6 at night, so right around dinner time and close to bedtime, and then I'm coming home around 2:33 in the morning. Although there was a triple overtime game a few weeks back where I got in at 5. So I was like so close to getting home when they woke up, and I just creeped up the stairs and crawled into bed, hoping no one would stir. So yeah, it's been a huge adjustment. I am very fortunate that I'm surrounded by wonderful people and help and support, including my husband, and we do have a nanny. So it takes a village is really true for us. And so it's been an adjustment, but we're making it work.
I've heard a lot of women feeling guilty about choosing their career over life with their family and having kids and all of that. And I imagine in your role that you had a fair bit of thinking to do about how you wanted to start a family as well. So going back to even before your first child, what were those early conversations like with your husband?
Sarah, we weren't going to have kids. Like, that was it. But that was just my choice. And he was on the same page as me. But yeah, when we got married, we were no kid zone and looked at all our other friends having little ones and thought, good for you, not for us. And then something changed, I guess around when I was 35 or so, where we started to want kids, and I think appreciated our own families. We both have 2 siblings and are close with our families and have, weekends together or trips together, Sunday dinners. And I think we just thought we want to have that too. So our mindset changed around having children. And then I've never been the type of person that would think you can't do it all. You might not be able to do it all at the same time. And of course, I didn't know what exactly meant having a child, how much work, how tired you would actually be. But why wouldn't you? Like, I have many friends and girlfriends, successful girlfriends in different fields of work that have kids and they make it happen. I'm sure it's stressful and tiresome, but yeah, it wasn't almost a question of choosing a career or choosing a family. It was just, you just do it.
Yeah. You just make it work.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, we need support, especially with my hours and my husband's hours, who works a normal job, or normal hours rather, not a normal job, but hours. It would be very difficult for us. I think we'd end up resenting each other if we didn't have someone to help out and make it work. Because they're exhausting and they're a little full-time job in itself. So it's we needed the help, and that's what we got. And of course there was guilt bringing someone into the home who's getting close to my son and both my sons now, and seeing how much they love her. But that's a good thing. I'm reminded of that is a very good thing when they love her and she cares about them. And so I've let go of the guilt, and it's just, I'm lucky that I have a great career that I love, and I get to come home to my, wonderful family, which sounds all like really Disney, but Yeah.
No, beautiful. How was your experience when you went on mat leave? Did you find it hard to turn work off?
So my first mat leave, I only took 6 months, and it was over the summer. So it was great. It felt like a summer break. It was awesome. Sure, I got paranoid and I had anxiety about being missed behind or FOMO. What am I missing out on? For sure. And so that's why I did cap it at 6 months, because I was worried about taking any longer. And so then I went back and that was fine. And then with my second son, he was born at like peak pandemic, end of March 2020. What the F is going on? We still weren't wearing masks. No one, everyone can remember what they were doing at the end of March. It was so crazy. And it actually turned out to be, in my opinion, the best time to have a baby, because we isolated. I didn't need to see anyone. No one needed to see that my condition or the house, the state of the house. Like, I didn't need to visit people. It was fantastic. And no one was doing anything. I just was keeping my baby alive and trying to keep myself sane. And so it worked out to be a good time. I probably wouldn't have taken a full year if it was non-pandemic, but because the NBA and the NHL hadn't started up until December, January, I didn't really feel like I was missing a lot. So I know that there was the bubble and everything, but yeah, no, it was much easier the second time. I think because I know for sure it's going to be our last child. And also the pandemic. It was just a really unique year, and I took advantage of that.
So because you've, gone off air, come back on air, gone off air, come back on air. Have you noticed that whether it's like your skill set has changed a little bit, becoming a mother changes you in so many ways, or what about just how you approach your coverage?
I think my skill set and preparation has changed since the very beginning, though. I think when I first got into, at least at Sportsnet, I needed to read everything, try and cover everything. And now I just pay attention more, and I have more focused on certain things and what I need to know in the time, and I can better focus because I don't have as much time as I used to. And now I am really big into podcasts. So if it means I go for a walk or I take my son to the park, I can have one ear in a podcast, and you can just multitask a lot easier. I don't know if that's a mom thing or just aging thing. I don't know, but I find I'm always constantly listening to the radio, the fans in my ear all the time. And then I've got my children. So yeah, I don't know if that's an age or a mom thing, but I'm just getting better at focusing in on what I need to know at that moment.
If you could help me figure out what I can focus on, I feel like I hear you so hard on that. My whole desk is like sticky notes right now. No, I hear you.
Oh my gosh. Well, our house has been turned upside down. Obviously, every room has become everything because my husband's working in our dining room. So he's taken it over, and it's not closed. Why did we do these open concepts? Because now it's like, everyone's everywhere and it's all open. And as you can see, I am in my youngest son's bedroom because
it looks nice, actually. Whatever.
He's got somehow he ended up with the biggest room, and he's only a year old. So anyway, so that's why I'm in here. And and our living room is now our gym, and it's whatever.
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk to you about your podcast, but I thought that we should kind of go back to the beginning here, because one of the most interesting things about your story is that you had no idea you wanted to end up in sports and broadcasting. You have a civil engineering degree. Did I read that right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So you always competed and played lots of sports growing up. But what led you from civil engineering to broadcasting?
It's a weird one, right?
Yeah.
Not many of us in this category, for sure. It's an exclusive club. Sports has been a huge part of my life from the get-go. I've got older sister and brother, and they were really good athletes. We were always going to games. Biggest memories in my head of growing up were the Jays World Series wins, and the Leafs used to be making the playoffs a lot more regularly and going deep. And then the Raptors. My dad was really involved in the very beginning from the Raptors, or even pre-beginning when they started playing. So sports has been a huge impact in my life. But I didn't really think you could do anything with it. And I certainly was not a good enough athlete to go far with it at all. I maybe made the intramural team at Queens, and that was just because, people were being nice. So So in high school, I was good at math and science, and I just figured, let's specialize, and picked engineering. My parents were totally stunned because didn't know any engineers, didn't really know what engineering was. But I applied to Queen's, I got in and went, and it was good. It was really hard though. Like I struggled. I failed a course in first semester, which was devastating for me as a perfectionist. Like that was really hard. And, am I making the right decision? But you have to stick with it. That's kind of, what our family does. And so I graduated after 4 years. And when you graduate or getting ready to, you think, well, now I've got to find a job in the field. Like what else would I do? So then I worked for an engineering firm for 2 years. I was in civil, but all the while knowing I didn't love it, but it's just like, what are my other options? And when you're in your early 20s, it's scary thinking that maybe you could do anything, or, you could totally pivot. Like it's a frightening time because you have to pick, you're told to make decisions so early. Like, where are you going to go to university? What are you going to study? And you're only in your teens. And so it's intimidating. And so I worked for a couple of years as an engineer thinking, well, I guess this is it. And then I had a friend who was kind of he was following his passion, and he was trying to become a basketball coach. And he was really the one who inspired me to like think outside the box. And okay, and he said this to me, if you landed on planet, Mars or wherever you want to go, and no one knew you because it was all about being judged, what would you do? And I said, I think being on television would be really fun. And he's like, great, let's do it. Figure it out, make it happen. And that's what I did. I found a course being offered at Seneca in York, and it was a summer program. It was only 4 months. And I thought, this is perfect, because if it doesn't work out, I've never taken any broadcasting courses or anything like that. If it doesn't work out, it's only a summer. It's like just, traveling or whatever, or taking a break, and I'll go back to engineering. And first week I was hooked. I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. And when you find that, it's really, the first time that's happened to me. And so I did it, and my parents weren't too happy, of course, because they help with university a lot of the time. I don't know, my parents did. And then I also made a decision and completely switched my mind. What did you switch from?
I was at Carleton for journalism, and I loved writing in high school, but I was a little bit bored. I don't know how else to say it. So I was getting really good grades, but I was like tearing my hair out at what we were learning. I was like, I don't really care about the French Revolution press right now. I decided I wanted to like try. I had heard like people going and doing streeters and being outside with microphones and stuff. And you could do that down the road, but I was like, I want to do that now. That sounds a lot more interesting now. So applied for Ryerson, didn't get into the journalism program. Worked for a year and ended up at Western and Fanshawe. I did the joint degree diploma.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I've heard great things about that.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I ended up working in music, but I wouldn't have known that until I got my hands in and was like, okay, this is exciting. Like that same moment that you had where you just know.
Yeah. And I'd never been exposed to broadcasting or journalism. Like I had no idea what it could offer. I would see people on TV. So someone will ask, oh, well, who were your mentors, or who were you looking up to when you were growing up? And it wasn't like that, because I didn't even consider that as a career opportunity or a career possibility. But it clicked. It was great. And my parents came on board, eventually. And then I was like, this is awesome. Who cares if I'm making no money? Because that was really fun. And that's, I think, when you really know that you enjoy what you're doing, when you're hardly making a cent and you're like, but the experience, and this is so fun, and maybe one day it'll lead to something, or who knows?
Yeah, look at you now. Come on.
Oh yeah, just making it rain. Yeah.
I use the line, are you kidding? I work in radio all the time. But
I started in radio.
Tell me a little bit about that. So I know you did TV in Arizona. The first radio gig was in Orillia?
Yeah, at a Jack FM. And it was one of those things where I graduated from this program at Seneca, and I was applying everywhere for radio. I wanted television, but listen, I needed a job. So I was applying to everything. And a Jack FM in Orillia, a woman named Heather, she was my first boss. and Jack, and they hired me, and it was just afternoon updates, Monday to Friday, covering city council meetings in Orillia and Oromodante. Like, it got pretty small town at points. And I started that in October, November, and did that all through the winter. And I am not a winter person. So that was kind of tough. And I didn't want to commit to the city or to that job wholly. So I was coming back on weekends and like driving back and forth. And I was living in a hotel.
Oh my God.
Which is pretty awesome, getting room service or like cleaning every day, but not ideal. And I was probably spending more than I was making. But yeah, I did that for a few months, and I just kept applying. And I was also volunteering in the city for a television job because I did want to do TV eventually. So yeah, so it was Orillia. And then I was sending out my tape, and I mean, gosh, Sarah, these are the days of VHSs. So mail was expensive, like trying, sending out these. I
mailed a t-shirt last week, and I'm thinking about how much that costs. And I can't even imagine like you have to pay to apply for a job.
Yes. So kids today have it easy. And I just applied all over the US because I'm a dual citizen. So I knew I could get a job down there if they wanted me. And someone in Yuma, Arizona replied and said, hey, we have an opening. If you're interested, let me know. And I, immediately responded and said, yes, when can I start? And he said, okay, hold on. Like, I have to let you know that it pays $19,000 a year. And this is in 2005. So, this is years ago, but still $19,000. It was not what I was used to. And a bit of a price reduction, as you could say. And so, but I was like, whatever, let's do it. Let's go. And so I drove down with my dad to Arizona. I hustled down there, and we went at the beginning of April, and I did the morning show down there for 2 years. And it was fantastic because it was one of those small markets where you're doing everything. Like, you are learning everything. And it's the best place to learn it all because, you have to work on your own, and you have to know how everything operates, and you appreciate everybody's role in making shows happen. But it was an interesting 2 years down in the border. Also, at the same time, like, it's invaluable what you can learn when, you can kind of pull from different skill sets. For sure. And I was working on a morning show. So I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and be there for 2:30. And there were a lot of mornings because it was a small town where it was mostly kids and people in their early 20s working. And so if the producer didn't want to show up for 5 a.m. show, he wouldn't show up. He didn't really care if he got, docked or whatever. They weren't going to fire him because it's hard finding people to do that work that are good. Yeah. So the producer wouldn't show up, and you're like, what? How is this happening? But that's like that small town market. You just have to deal with it and go with the flow. But I will say the experience living down in Yuma was wild in the sense that, it's a border town. Illegal immigration is such a huge issue. Like, we hear about it today, but it's been going on for years. And growing up in Oakville, I had no idea that it was such an issue. And then also, it's a big military town and city. And again, growing up where I did, that's just not as present. So it was a real eye opener to a different city and place that I wouldn't have known about otherwise. Working in the US versus working in Canada, what are the biggest differences that you sort of observed? What I noticed in the States, at least in the areas I was, and this is back again in 05, 06, 07 years, it's more glamorous. There's more attention to, especially because we were so close to the Phoenix market and Los Angeles and San Diego. And so maybe it's, that California Hollywood effect, but it's just the news anchors are more done up, and they could be actors themselves, or maybe they want to be actors, but that didn't work out. So then they're a news anchor, and it just all seemed very like I was watching a movie sometimes when I was actually watching the news. And I feel when I come to Canada, it's, again, this was years ago. My first real difference noticing was that we're just more polite. More polite. Just like, maybe that's not the right word, but more like raw or real. And the clothes or the looks, the makeup, the hair, it's just not as big of a deal. And it's just more organic.
It makes sense because I think it was maybe like a year or two ago, I was sort of researching what type of like voiceover opportunities there might be. And I asked someone like, what's the best way to look at this, or where's the best place to go? And like the first thing that comes up is like, oh, do you have an agent? And I was like, no.
Oh yeah, no, everybody has an agent down there. Like they wanted me, I was working in Yuma and an agent approached me. I'm thinking, well, how much are you going to take my $19,000? Like, are you kidding me? What do you mean? Yeah. And it's also not only for voice work, funny you bring that up, but it's your voice has to I feel like there were so many fake voices or intonations or expressions coming from the anchors where I was like, you really don't talk like that, do you? And I remember when I got to Sportsnet, I put on that voice too, because I'm like, well, I should probably sound more than I am. And my friends would say to me in the beginning, why do you talk like that? You sound really funny when you're on air and you don't sound like yourself. And it clicked for me. I was like, I should probably just talk how I normally talk because that's way easier than putting on this voice. But I feel like there's an anchor voice put on. It's like totally Rowan Burgundy and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another lesson learned from Arizona, basically, right?
Yes.
So what about being a woman in sports? You hear all the women who work in sports have a story or two to tell about what they've had to deal with. And there are so many different angles that we could approach this from. Did you find it easy to make your way into sports as a woman?
I think because I was going into Sportsnet, having not worked in sports, because I was coming from the news when I was doing the morning show in Arizona. So I think it was just a mixture of, I was new to the station. Viewers didn't know who I was. My colleagues didn't really have a lot of background on me. And so I was really green. Like I only had 2 years of experience under my belt. I was really green and, thankfully Sportsnet stuck with me and gave me a chance, stuck with me because I would make mistakes on names and I don't know, I know I got judged harshly on it because I was a female, but I was also new. So I hadn't gained the trust of a lot of viewers, if that makes sense. So I think it was a combination of things in the beginning for sure. I'm sure you've heard this before, that if a woman says the wrong name of a player and a guy says the wrong name, benefit of the doubt goes to the guy. I think that's changed. At least for me, because I've been there so long now. So it's like, okay, she had a slip of the tongue. Well, it happens. I get marbles in my mouth all the time. So I think it's the benefit of the doubt is given after time and you just gain that relationship with the viewers. Is there, I've only been a woman in sports, so I don't know what it's like on the other side. That's, I guess, the easiest out I could get from that answer or from that question. Do I love sports? Do I know sports? Was I hired because of my sports knowledge? I'm passionate about it. I love it. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I hate when people say, do you actually like sports? Like that's the biggest slap in the face someone can ask, because they would never ask any of my male counterparts or colleagues. Like, it's just so silly and it's infuriating. And have I gotten better at knowing my sports knowledge? Of course. Am I an analyst? By no means, but I don't think I try to be. So I'm going in a long way of answering this, but there have been sexism examples, and there have been tough times, and there have been times when I've cried come home with, crying because it's just been tough or no one understands my point of view or it's hard to get it across. But I think after time, because I've been there so long, I've also gained a voice, and my voice has gotten louder and more confident. So it's a combination of me just being so young and not really knowing if I could speak up at the beginning. Sort
of getting more comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah, like it took me, as I said, I was really green when I came, and thankfully, my bosses at the time, we did a lot of different things. Like they sent us all to an improv class, which was really great and good for me. It was a great learning experience.
They do that in radio too, for sure. It's so helpful.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. It was fun. There were 8 of us or so, anchors from Sportsnet, and we all did this whatever long it was, 4-week, 5-week training session. And it was fun. And it, got me like just getting out of my head, because I've always been and this is just me as a person, but I just want to be perfect. I don't want to make a mistake. And I don't want anyone to be upset with me. I want to be right in the middle, neutral. And that's just not possible. Like, I can't please everyone. Yeah. There's always going to be someone upset. And so I think I've just got to get in my head and just speak how I actually feel, in my opinion. And I was so afraid to do that and have a strong opinion or be wrong about it, and then perhaps be judged because I was a woman, or because, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And so for so long, I think I held my opinion back. And so improv was good for that. And just getting more comfortable on the desk and,
reactions
more. Yeah. The reaction. So improv was great. And then we had a coach come in, a talent coach. And again, that was like, I felt I took huge strides with that. And then my co-anchor, Ken Reed, came, and it was the first real connection I had with a partner, and we just clicked. And he's, one of my best friends. And it was just easy, because what we talk about off the screen was the exact same thing we talk about on the screen. And sometimes you're like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have danced on air like I did last night. But then it happens, and you're like, that was great. This is fun, So improv and having a talent coach were so good for me, and the addition of Ken.
Speak to me about a moment where you knew that you could finally let those things that used to bother you roll off your shoulder.
Oh, man.
That it didn't bother you the same way it used to.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said it doesn't bother me at all, which is why I'm still hesitant to sometimes go on radio, because I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be judged. But that's so silly, because I do know what I'm talking about. I think it did get easier. It was probably after my first son was born. And I just gained a different type of confidence. Like, I'm a mom, and I can do whatever I want. Like, this is, I don't know what it happened, but it was just this like confidence that came from having a son and being like, why should I care what other people think when I only really, should be caring about my own family and my friends? So that's when things started to turn, and I gained more confidence in that. But I'd be totally lying if I don't check Twitter and my heart sinks a little sometimes, feeling like, oh God, did I say something, or is someone going to say something, something like that, which is silly, because I don't know if a lot of people get that, and I need to get over it at some point.
Oh, I think we all have that. I definitely, every time I post something, I'm like, here we go. It's out in the world. but
do you have someone who reminds you, who cares?
Yes. And that's what's so important. Do you and Ken always get the same feedback, or is the feedback different between the two of you?
Feedback from the viewers, we get different, because they'll be, like I'm on Instagram and I'm posting pictures of my outfit, and Ken's not doing that. He's posting pictures of hockey cards. So we'll definitely get different feedback in that sense. And, I get comments that are grotesque and rude and awful. And then, but sometimes he'll get some too, but it's just targeted different. I feel like being so sheltered because I am in the studio and I'm not on the road. I'm not in the dressing rooms when that used to be normal. I'm not with the players all the time or with the public. I'm so sheltered in the studio, which is good and bad, or not bad, but it's like it has its advantages for sure, because it's a controlled room and I have my hours and a lineup, and you know what's coming next, more or less.
Less flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. So I'm not down at the Dome. I mean, I do Rogers Cup tennis once a year. That's my kind of like get away from Ken, get out of jail, which is amazing. And it's really fun living that reporter life, because it's so different and it's really tough, and, long days, and you're sitting there, and it's, you think about it, I'm courtside watching the best female tennis players in the world. Like, tennis is my favorite sport, and I'm watching these ladies just annihilate each other, or carve each other up with their serves and have wicked rallies. But it's still like tiring watching all this all day long and then talking to them. So that for me, that's always been getting out of my comfort zone when I have to do something different other than just sitting at the desk.
Yeah. Same here. We have a lot of like controlled produced programs, and then every once in a while there's something live, and
Yeah, which keeps you on your game.
I used to be live all the time, so I often like miss it. So when I came to SiriusXM, I was giving up that piece to not be live all the time, which I definitely had some reservations about.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I get scared though. Like every night tonight, I'm scared because we'll be coming out of the hockey game, and I'm scared that we're going live. But then there's those butterflies. But it's a different live. I think it's, for me, it's also when I do the reporting or when I get out in the among the public, and in the general public, seeing people, like their reaction and seeing their eyes and how they're watching you and they can hear you like right then. That's the difference for me. That's why public speaking is always a little frightening.
Yeah. I hear that. So with what you came out of Arizona with, this idea of all the glam and like being all done up as like a news reporter, how much did that play into, the sports anchor that you've become at Sportsnet? How often do you like even think about the outfit and what you're wearing and how much that matters?
Well, returning from mat leave after a pandemic, I definitely thought about the outfits and the makeup a lot, and getting to wear heels and doing my hair, because it had been a while since I was out of sweats and, comfy clothes. So, you know what? It's part of the package. Like, I'm sure we all have opinions of when we watch TV and what the person is wearing or how their hair is, girl or guy. And if it's too distracting, then that's not a good thing. And sometimes I get compliments on my outfits and sometimes I definitely don't. And but it's part of the job. Even though I'm covering sports, I had someone comment on my Instagram, like, why are you posting so much fashion? That's not what you do. It's like, just because I'm in sports doesn't mean I can't like fashion or enjoy wearing clothes, or, well, I enjoy wearing clothes, but enjoy wearing fashionable clothes, trendy things. Like, just because you're in one thing doesn't mean you can't enjoy others. So yeah, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get my hair done. I feel like it's a rat's nest and trying to get through it every day and survive. And I will tell you that absence does not make the heart grow fonder for heels. Even after going a year without them, they are still painful putting them on. But yeah, I enjoy getting back to all that because I like it, right?
And it also makes you feel good and confident when you're on air, I would imagine too.
Totally. Like we went through a period where, I had different makeup artists, or my hair wasn't working for me, and it just affects you and your presentation. Because if you're thinking about it sounds silly, but if you're thinking about, oh, I really don't feel comfortable with my hair, or it's falling, or I don't look good, and this outfit is like, I keep fidgeting with it or whatever, then that's going to take away from your show and your performance in other parts. So, yeah, I always want to look my best and look good because it's part of the package.
Yeah. So tell me about one of your proudest moments on air.
Oh, it would definitely be covering the Rogers Cup. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I think just interviewing the players, I got to interview Evanka Osmak when she won the Rogers Cup back in 2019, and being with her all week, and starting with her on the Friday, Saturday and warm-ups, and she had been coming off the Indian Wells win, but then an injury, and so being with her, and then every day there was a win, and keep riding it, and you build a relationship with this person, right? Because you're with them every day and on court with them. And so the final, I don't know if you remember, but Serena Williams withdrew.
Yes.
In really early on, like I think second or third game. And so it was stunning. But yeah, that was probably one of my proudest moments, is just being up close and personal with her all week, and getting to see how she prepared and how she moved through the week. She overcame a lot of challenges through the week, and then seeing her win was really special, and the crowd growing, and
remarkable awesome. The display of female perseverance too.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's why I love covering them, that tournament. It's just like these women, these athletes are so phenomenal, and their physical strength, mental strength, like they're wicked. And it's I would love to cover more women's sports because it's fantastic and I admire them.
I did a panel with MLSE and I had JC from The Gist on the panel. A lot of like the e-blast that went out that week was all around the data coming out about how much people love watching women's sports. How much do you think about that stuff behind the scenes?
We can do better. I think we can do better. I think we all can, though. It's kind of, I hear the counter argument is, well, no one's watching, or there aren't a lot of, the ratings aren't good for female sports, so we shouldn't air it. Well, they're not going to get good if you don't air it. So, it's a chicken or egg. Like, you have to start showing it. I think Sportsnet's done a great job of partnering with the women's hockey. They just had the tournament in Calgary. That was fantastic to watch, really exciting. And, seeing the women's basketball team prepping right now for the Olympics, and the WNBA it's exciting every night. Like, something's happening. So it's getting better, but it has a ways to go, because I had a girlfriend say to me, and this is when it really, stuck with me, is she said, my two young girls, will watch TV, will watch Sportsnet, and they don't see anyone like them. And that's what it all is. When you don't see anyone like you to emulate or look up to, that's a problem. And so, I think we need to have more female sports, so that these young girls and young women are able to say, like, yeah, I want to do that when I'm older. Like, why can't I do that? I look at my niece, and she's a wicked lacrosse player, and 11 years old, and I don't know who she would look up to watching, right? And so I'm thinking about her when I go in there and say, hey, we should put this highlight in, or let's get more stories, because for so long it seemed like it was only women's tennis that we were really focusing on, and even then it was like one Serena Williams or Sharapova. But now it's like, no, there's so many great female athletes out there that we should be highlighting.
For sure. What about a moment on air that didn't go as planned?
Oh gosh, every night, Sarah. Are you kidding me? Do you know how much improv Ken and I do? Holy cow. No,
you have to pick one.
Gosh. Well, I've never sworn on air, because I don't swear in my personal life. I kind of cut that habit cold turkey many years ago, so I didn't do that. What has happened recently? I mean, I was even thinking last night, I couldn't talk. We came out of a clip out of the game, and I couldn't talk. And thankfully I have Ken, who is able to see, if he can see me, just wheels are spinning really hard. Like, where am I going with this? He's able to, pick up, and then I'm like, recover, and we go. I'm a huge believer in self-deprecating humor. And if I forget something, or if I say something wrong, then just own it and laugh at yourself and move on. So yeah.
How many times have you and Ken had to have a discussion, behind the scenes about something not going well?
I mean, I would say 95% of the time we're on the same page when it comes to with our producer, or how we think things should look. Neither of us are afraid to speak up. He certainly is not. So we're fortunate that we're on the same page a lot of the times. We get into tips. There was something the other week, and I had just been back for 2 weeks from mat leave. And I'm like, seriously, we're already at each other's throat and bickering like an old married couple, which we're not, because some people think we are married. We are not at all. Both happily married to others. I think we were raised, he's from Nova Scotia. I'm from Oakville. So I think sometimes we just have different upbringings and different, styles of how, our lifestyle. And so I think sometimes we can butt heads like that, and we are like brother and sister, where we just don't see it. I don't have a specific example of what we fought about, but it happens. And it's at the point where our producer just puts us on mute and does not want to listen to us. And we just need space. It's nice because we know each other well enough now that I'll just leave and get away from him.
BRB, taking a moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So how do you deal with, any moments where you do have to take a minute for yourself and reset, and, something's been a little difficult to handle, being on all the time, literally, even, I think back to before the pandemic, there's the Rogers Sports celebrity dinners and all these things. And, you guys are very involved, and you're always on. And sometimes it's hard to keep the smiling face on?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I think that's why I talked about my fake voice when I first started at Sportsnet. I think that's why I've tried to really just be me a lot of the time so that I don't have to put anything on that I don't want to. I don't actually, not to make you feel really special, but I don't do a lot of podcasts because my time, with the boys, with work, with, doing the things I got to do to prep for work are just, the time it shrinks in my day. And I don't have time for a lot of extra stuff. So I've had to say no to things, and I didn't used to before. So now I'm a bit choosier of what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm going out to. My husband might argue with me about this or disagree, but I'm not a huge social person. So yeah, I feel like I do have to put things on, and, public speaking, I mentioned, is a big fear of mine. So there's definitely a okay, here we go, we're going to do this. And you have to act a little bit and you have to put it on. But you know what, the trade-off is so great, and it's fine. It's like, I don't want to say there are worse things I could be doing, but yeah, if that's what I have to do is be a little extra and act like, I'm brave and I'm confident and smiling and strong, then that's
not the worst thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. But I am just really picky about what I do now because I don't have time for everything.
Yeah. You have that luxury too at this stage in your career that, you want to make sure that you're doing things that help amplify what you believe in too.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I really wanted to talk to you about your podcast and launching your podcast.
So
before we wrap up,
I'm a podcast junkie. I've been listening for years, all sorts of genre. I love my Real Housewives, huge super fan. So every week there's a 2-hour episode, deep dive into anyways, I won't even get into that, but I love my podcast, all of it. And so it was a few years ago where I just thought, why aren't I doing this? I mean, today everyone seems has one, but I thought, why aren't I doing this? I want to talk about moms because I don't want to be just a sports person. I've got so many other hats that I wear. And so what's a good way to kind of open that up to an audience? And so I reached out to Melanie Ng, who works at Breakfast Television, and I know she's a mom. Her son is a year older than my eldest. And so I just said, hey, do you want to do this? And we pitched it, and it didn't really go anywhere at Rogers. And then they came back to us and said, okay, let's go. Let's give it a try. And so we called it Moms in the Middle because she works in the very early hours of the morning. I work very early hours at night. And so we meet in the middle, and we just talk about mom issues. And it was also selfishly a great way for me to get advice for being a mom and what do I do? And so
brilliant.
Yeah. I was like, why don't I just talk to the experts and we can, disguise it as a podcast, but really I'm just asking personal questions yeah, my friend is having problems with, her relationship with her husband. No. So it's been good. We've been on hiatus for a while, so I'm hoping we get things back and running in the fall. But I really enjoy it because it's just a different medium. You can speak freer, and it's a different subject than sports. So I'm not limited to speaking about the game or other players' stats. It's what's happening in my life and what do I want to know about my kids or what they're going through or what the heck I'm going through. Jesus, sorry, now I'm going off on a tangent, but I turned 40 and lots of things are happening here, it's a crazy time for a woman. So I have lots of questions. It's been working out as you probably know, it does work out on Zoom and it's much easier to schedule people. It's easier to do that, but I do miss the interaction of seeing people face to face and being in the same room and being able to interact off and jive off other people, and reading body language. So I miss that, but hopefully
we'll come back
there. Yeah, I hope so. But I love podcasting.
So a couple of things to end off here. Greatest piece of advice that you've ever received?
So this would be from the talent coach, and he would say, when I write my material for the shows, he would be pick a person, pretend you're writing for them, you're picking up the phone. And I always chose my great aunt Dolly. She was about 100 years old, and I would, be writing for Great Aunt Dolly and what would I say? And so it's like a conversation. So instead of just speaking out into the wild, I would pick a person, someone who, wasn't a sports fanatic, but knew and enjoyed watching sports. And that would keep me true to myself and being myself, because it was like talking to someone I knew, a relative or a friend. So I think if you are yourself, and the best way to do that is pretend you're talking to someone else and having a conversation. Forget that there's a camera there or a lens, and there's a big separation between you and the viewer, and just act like you're being friends with someone. I think is some of the greatest advice I've gotten.
What about a piece of advice that you would share with like younger you when you were 25, just getting into sports?
Oh man, be myself. It's taken me a long time to just be myself and be confident in my own skin. I don't have to know everything. I think I have to remind myself of that. I don't need to know everything, because that doesn't stop a lot of other people from, going on and preaching about a topic. But so it's okay. It's okay for some people to not agree with your opinion. And I think I'm still getting over that. But yeah, be myself. Okay.
And in the spirit of this podcast, I want you to tell me a few other women that you think have a story that should be told here.
Okay. Tessa Bonham, who works at TSN, mostly hockey, because she is a former hockey player. She's a mom, and she's a badass golfer, and just a really cool person. She's she's a wonderful person. And one of my colleagues, Danielle Michaud, who covers the Raptors, she's been kicking butt, and really enjoy hanging out with her and watching her work. And then Megan Chayka, who I haven't met, but I feel like in this weird social media world, we have a lot of, plus she's a Ukrainian, so I feel we have a kindred spirit. But she is really shaking things up with her analytics and when it comes to hockey and sports. And so I think she's just someone who I'm really curious and interested about what she does, and I find it fascinating. And she's beautiful, smart, and carving her own path. And it's really awesome to see things like that.
She was just on that panel I told you about.
Oh, no way. The MLS.
Yeah. And I thought that during the panel, I was like, wow, she's a little firecracker. I want to have her on for sure.
Sure. Yeah. No, like I said, I've never met her, but we've interacted on social media, and she seems like a really cool person. And all about giving props to other ladies.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for fitting this into your crazy busy schedule. I am honored that you chose to come on my podcast.
This is what I wanted to do. So it's like, yeah, this sounds cool. So, and I definitely listened to the ones that you have done in the past. And I thought, okay, let's do it.
You can find out more about Evanka by following the links in this episode's show notes. Make sure you check out her podcast, Moms in the Middle, which I'll link you to as well. And once again, please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to keep up with new episodes with fabulous women in media. If you've got a lead, by the way, someone you think would be fascinating to hear more about, you can drop me a line anytime on social media at Women in Media Pod or womeninmediapod@gmail.com. You can email me too. Thank you so much for listening.
Don't skip this ad. I saw your finger. You were trying to skip the ad. I didn't want to do this, and now we're stuck in it together. I'm Ryan. I'm the host of The Linz Report. The Linz Report is a snarky, humorous, yet balanced look at the headlines that fill your timeline every day. We're going to get straight to the point without muddying any of the waters. And remember, The Linz Report is not your parents' news commentary. We swear a lot here, like a whole lot. So tune in and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and find us at CryerMedia.co or wherever you get your fine podcasts, like they say at the end of all of these ads. It's podcasting. Why are we doing ads?
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.